Chronicles TV on air. We are now live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. In the previous episode, we're in still part 3. Previous episode, we had to take a quick break after finishing the summation examination. Today's right now, we're going to go back to the court. If you have today's episode, make sure that like button subscribe to the channel. Ah, the Knight Errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any of the professor I've ever met before. Who is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, a professor. Excuse me. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies, ha 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 ha! As it turns out, Lord Von Zeigt is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he? Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock. And now, a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberately. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes, in what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Von Zeitz. It seems that everybody in this trial has a link to this case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty seat, all alone with no intersection to any other. Dr. Scythe! Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe, nay Stevens, good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory wielding my scalpel. I smell nothing but corpses and disinfectant. Why did you request like $500 a month? A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe. And I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. The certainty won't be possible. Lord Von Zeigt won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the professor's case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I have always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, not at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. She mentioned it too. This Pandora's box. Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern, I assure you. When the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you like it or not. Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Whoa! Ah yes, one more warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good, I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. The courthouse sells food? What did the warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth. No matter what. Did he not just say that in the beginning? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of the court. Counsels for defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. Defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with damaging incident at the Great Exhibit. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of the convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation, as seems to the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord von Zykes, my lord, are we still awaiting the arrival of the Madame Tusspells? Not at all. She is in the attack chamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Very well, bring in to the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tusspells to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it seems he must have an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between those otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. Hey! State your name and occupation for the court, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tusspells. I am a waxwork artisan and the proprietress of the Madame Tusspells Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world. Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped. A waxwork model kidnapped? Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no mere than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Audie Osmond. But of course, I know him well. He's part of my odious personage exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Osmond does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the masked visage of the professor? You're the one who locked it? I have the key, but it's strictly forbidden to open the lock. This is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly it won't be that of the actual killer. Indeed, the man's identity was never made public after all. The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that repository as tawdry exhibits could get its hand on the information. Well, dommage. I don't know what that means. It would seem you are unaware of the Tusspells principles. What principles? The family Tusspell has prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles. There is well-known legend about the Tusspells waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tusspells family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually, at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Tusspells will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
We, the true visage of the killer, is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Magnum Tusspell special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave is a sight to behold you should calm.
Open the goddamn mask, madam! I think, madam, it would be beneficial for your formal testament of this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in the creation.
With pleasure.
The professor's waxwork.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on the rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse and coordinated with the Tusspell family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold of the head in the century that just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Huh, interesting. The gravedigger, the man sectioned this?
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance of my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
The gravedigger being Dragger. Oh, so that's what it probably means. He's the gravedigger. So you truly saw it? The face of that monster? Just open the mask!
Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret, but Tusspells would not be Tusspells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this. I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time.
Hey!
The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article.
Did he really have the ironclad mask?
It was the most detailed account of what happened as reported by eyewitnesses who saw it.
Bald mask. Bald mask.
Interesting.
Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's waxwork from the exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibit, wasn't it? Yo, she's 26 right now. 10 years ago, she was 16.
That is correct. The professor you see here.
Most puzzling. Just open the freaking head.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe, and there has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove it that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in this together.
What I want to press is...
Hold it!
Is it true that every waxwork in your museum then?
It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know.
What sort of letters? Love letters?
When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Kumeka? Kumeva?
No! Sa?
My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a similar status is even.
Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax.
And it's thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the professor.
Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse.
There are no exceptions to the principles of Tusspells.
I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold with the heat. Oh! We didn't even check the thing. Hold up. Hold up. Just behind the prison, blah blah. The fire engulfed the center theaters. Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself visited the Royal Italian Opera to inspect the site and offer words of condolence to the Frederick guy. Great. Oh, there was nothing to expect after all.
Hold it!
Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of this repository of the novelties was blinded by monetary greed.
It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to scope him, to record this history. It is the reason of the Tusspells Museum.
But if the man was convicted in the closed court and sent in for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judicial present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The professor's identity is a national secret.
I understand. And now the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed. It must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madam.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression on his face from the corpse.
Oui, exactly.
Exactly?
I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there a very long time.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the
cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin? Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It's because of a rigor mortis. That sounds familiar.
A rigor mortis?
It's the name given to the phenomenon that occurs in recently diseased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from the point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
As the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death and it starts in the jaw.
I see, so that's why you wait.
Before that time, the mouth falls open and it's very difficult to do my work.
It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses.
I wonder about that information the court just heard from Madame Tusspells.
The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic. The atmosphere in the court has become extremely grave.
This is no time for jokes, Mr. Sato. Madam, kindly amend your testimony as we discussed.
Bonsoir.
Let's see. So we're talking about a guy being stiff, right? Yo! Osmond's name is right there! He was in a newspaper? Why is Osmond's name in there? Yo! That's his signature right there! Hey, for once the magnifying glass is useful. What's his signature doing? What's going on? Where was the contract again? That's the exact same signature of the dead man.
Hold it!
Rigor mortis being the phenomena you describe, whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw, about 3 hours post-death. Is that right?
Oui. Say ça.
Whatever.
Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season.
I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject.
No. That is only elementary knowledge in the field on legal medicine.
Well, I had no idea, but maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science.
I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like.
I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear, I'll do my very best.
As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Hold it!
You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately?
Well, I could not say, but when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on 17th June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year. Indeed it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning. That really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in half an hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry.
Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too? You certainly appear to go on extraordinary lengths for your work, madam. I wonder, is what she said particularly significant? Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete sculpture and the early sunrise, could you include that in your testimony? I believe that may be significant.
Of course, if you'd like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning? Would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant. Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord. I hurried to finish my work in half an hour before sunrise, and I left as soon as the corpse was interred.
Hold it!
Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something?
I had paid the grave digger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area.
Couldn't you just have paid off the warden too then?
I had already paid the grave digger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret no longer a secret.
The sunrise was 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work.
Oui, that must be correct. That would be when a grave digger gave me the signal to come out of hiding.
So that's all I have to go on.
What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo?
For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that the waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow.
In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their links and the trial will be over.
I agree, but interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Von Sykes than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway.
Yes, I do. As do I.
After all, he has a profound connection to Professor as well. Yo, I don't even know what I'm supposed to press. Besides the thing that has Osmond's name, I have Mad Sheep Rampage. Charles Darwin! But that's the only thing I'm getting at. What are we gonna press? Is there anything special about it left? Because I'm drawing blanks. I got nothing. Oh, this thing. The camera from around the neck of the waxwork driver in the special exhibit that the lens is extended. This was in the scene of the crime. I'm thinking it's that? Because there was blood on that thing. Oh, it is part 4. That's the only basis I can go on. I have no idea what I'm supposed to press. She has to... Wait, we're talking about the body, not the guy that was there, right? Wait a minute. Did he have the camera on him? Yeah, the camera's right there. Clear as day. As the newspaper shown. I believe it's the rigor mortis part. I believe. It's the rigor mortis part, I believe. Because if rigor mortis did occurred, then what explains about the body coming out looking like that? Like, how exactly... If he's supposed to be dead, then explain to me as to why it's this. Okay, never mind. I guess I got nothing. I got nothing in my head. I got nothing to press. Okay, let's go back because I pressed everything but that first one, so...
Hold it!
Let's see if that changes anything. And the rumor would be...
A 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Alright, just know what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it wouldn't be anything else.
Yes, that story will never disappear.
Tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city and it was like this.
Yo!
It was a long, low gate cemetery behind the prison in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back the stone slab uncovering his tomb, emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. But wasn't he supposed to be the guy digging it up?
The corpse climbed out of his own grave?
And then somebody shot him? Who? Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was every newspaper across the capital.
But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that came to be today at the museum, isn't it?
The special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were produced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, may I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of the Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life.
Sorry?
10 years ago, I was there in Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the Professor was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead.
I see. It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate. I have nothing, Chief. I really don't. I don't know what I'm supposed to press on.
Objection!
Yeah, I really don't. Because I have nothing. I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to press. I don't know which evidence I'm supposed to use. I did so good so far, but now I'm just drawing blanks. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with the Tusspells family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head, the summer just before the interment. It took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis. I hurried to finish my work in half an hour before the sunrise, and I looked at the corpse was interred. Let's see. What can we use? Death by hanging confirmed by midnight, 17th June. So if you want to have a 3-hour gap, it would be around. Oh, the killer report. Hold up. Could that be it? You have to wait 3 hours.
Objection!
There you go. Madam Tusspells, I have here an autopsy report that was filled 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows.
And is that a problem?
I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tusspells was creating her wax impressions just before dawn, and at the time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam?
You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw, the first sign of rigor mortis 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot be been dead for a long time.
But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Sight's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June. No. If the professor indeed died at the midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his fate, rigor mortis would already have set in.
Yes, you're right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff.
In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible. Order! Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate the members of the staff at the Barclay prison where the execution took place. By heck. Extraordinary! Not in my day.
Objection!
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night, without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's lips jaw with my own hands.
Objection!
There was no...
Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting that happened in that case?
almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person in interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened that night.
The camera?
Take that!
Let's go!
What have we here?
Objection!
Before considering the night of the execution, I would strongly advise the defense to concentrate what is happening right now in this courtroom.
What? Come on, son! I had the idea! I had the right idea, Chief! Great, I'm so looking forward to trying again now. I won't let anyone execute you, Mr. Naruto. Not tonight. Not tonight, she says. We pressed the camera because of the freaking blood that happened. Oh my god. I swear to God, if it's a testimony, I'd be so goddamned. The camera was there and it showed blood. They did not. So what exactly do we have to press on?
Take that!
Oh, come on, son! What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse? Coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Don't be a fool, that's simply a rumor, published by the gutted press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word, yes indeed.
We, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness, the story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up. In any case, that was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
On the contrary, my lord, we all know the witness well.
What? Are you suggesting, Counsel, that you've identified the person in question? Now you know who claims to have utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now then, Counsel. Who was the alleged witness of this staggering scene from the century 10 years ago? The guy that just witnessed it?
Take that!
The man in question, Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Drebber. The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at the Madame Tusspells Museum of Waxwork recreates the decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is the 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order, order. And he's gonna give his testimony on that. Surely not, Counsel. Drebber was there in Lowgate Cemetery.
What is all this talk about, Mr. Drebber? Is the man significant? Of course, Madame Tusspells doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No. That would mean...
Madame Tusspells. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber?
No? Yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past...
What?
Oh my.
Good gracious! Get to the point! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, of course. The name, please! The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single news.
But did we not just went through this?
However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court.
You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article? Oh yes, here it is. The university student who experienced the shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of scientists at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable.
When I read the article, I went to meet the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactly. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork, and since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of the terror from the cemetery.
I thought we were just going on the name, not the background history of that. I thought he was going by a different name back then. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote. That was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork built a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. Can you please open the damn mask? Why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed in the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Osmond but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated Dr. Scythe would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted the autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Scythe put her name to document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used a particular waxwork as the body double. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber connected. Well, according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is honored to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us to herself, didn't she? Something had happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Von Sykes. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Von Sykes, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say in the policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes.
Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together. Order! Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena of immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe, the forensic investigation team. The woman is compelled to attend of Her Majesty's orders.
Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone thrown away. I can feel it. The truth behind all this is about to come out.
To be continued?
Hey! Yo! Hold on!
Thank you for your attendance at such notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Von Sykes. You completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed by your own workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigation coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is believed of the defense that you collaborate with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definite evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. The model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to the newspaper reports from the time on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to the mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't a chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to the very great secret of Dr. Scythe. A secret so profound it could be compelled to the coroner to agree to collaborate with your evil scheme in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw the night in the Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who saw it? You could see the resemblance, actually, can't you? The man in Manitos, I mean? Surely he's not going to claim that he really what I saw, especially not after those years. He was a research student at the University of London, was he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me. Ha ha ha. What an interesting twist. When at the time not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are 10 years later and suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let be frank, I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night for what it's worth. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony please, about the events of the night. And with that, we'll end the episode right here. Like, comment, subscribe, Chronicles TV, and I'm signing out.